And if they make any mistake at all, then they'll be destroyed. He said, oh, very good. Finish the deity quickly. Then the devotees came, and the Murti maker showed them the deity, and they were awestruck that, how powerful the deity looked and large and everything. And then the Murti maker told them the story of you better watch out. You have some envious people, the wealthy and envious people. He said, what I didn't tell the man, this is what I told him, but what I didn't tell him is when the deity is in a temple room, that there's another main deity, Nrsingadev takes on the mood of the other main deity, the Radhamadava. He'll take on the mood of Radhamadava and Panchatattva. But I didn't tell him, but you should know that. It doesn't mean, be casual, because it's different than Lord Nrsingadev. So that's the history behind the Nrsingadev deity. Then, the deity was brought from South India and installed, and he's been worshipped very nicely. There's there's many. There's a little book on exchanges that the deity has had over a period of time with the pujaris. One of them is, you see in this photo of the deity, his eyes are reddish around the edges. And the pujari was thinking, that's pretty scary. So he decided to exchange the deity's eyes with another set of eyes that didn't have that bloodshot look around his eyes. He did it without consulting Jananivas. He just did it. And then 3 days in a row, while he's doing this puja behind the closed doors. So at the closed doors, it was like, you've seen that, the temple room, the altar, it's very small. It's just the doors are closed, and that's it. It's just the pujari and the deity. And he heard 3 consecutive days, return my eyes. Looked around, where'd that voice come from? So he third time, he was scared. So he went to Jananivas, said, I heard this 3 times. And Jananivas said, did you change his eyes? He said, well, yes, because, he said, you put the eyes back. The deity is very personable, always. And even in this circumstance where yeah. Wow. Can you see now back there? Ugra Nrsinga. But he's very peaceful. Have you seen this deity on Akshaya Tritiya or Chandan Yatra? Have you seen? Look closely. See how his teeth are jutting, but follow the line of his jaw, and it goes back and back and back. And with his Chandan Yatra, you see a big smile, because he's actually smiling. He's ready to pounce, and his ears are up, just like the description that Prahlada says in his prayers to Lord Nrsingadev. I'm not afraid of your wedge-like ears, your garland of intestines, your blood-soaked mane, your loud roar, because I know that's for the non-devotees. I'm not afraid. So that's a little history. So now our technology is working. And let's go back a little bit, not too much, but I've been, before I came here, in anticipation of Nrsinga Chaturdasi, I was in Virginia, and we covered like 8-9 verses of the prayers of Prahlada to Lord Nrsingadev. That's chapter 9. Guess what? Chapter 9 comes after chapter 8. And chapter 8 is when Lord Nrsingadev appears from a pillar, and Hiranyakashipu says what he says, and where are you getting your power? Chapter 8, from the same place you are, from Vishnu. Oh, Vishnu. Where is Vishnu? He's everywhere. Oh, he's everywhere. Is he in this pillar? And with his fists, some other descriptions say with his sword, he smashed the pillar, and Lord Nrsingadev came from the pillar and played with him, and then put him on his lap and ripped him apart. And the soldiers of Hiranyakashipu went charging, and he dismembered them also, and roaring. And his anger didn't subside. Chapter 8. His anger didn't subside. The demigods came forward. The goddess of fortune was afraid. That's a detail. She was there also. But Brahma, Shiva, this one, that one. Finally, Brahma pushed him forward. Brahma, because Sampradaya, the head of the Sampradaya, he appeared for you. So you see if you can pacify him. And that's how, more or less, how chapter 8 ends. In chapter 9, under the instruction of Brahma, little Prahlad comes forward, and Lord Nrsingadev stops roaring. And he places his hand on Prahlad's head and empowers him by that to, his body erupts in ecstatic emotion, and he, with faltering voice, he begins offering his prayers. So we covered those prayers, beginning of chapter 9. And I want to do a little bit of review just before where we left off. And then this is 39 is where we left off. So I'm going to go back to 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. There was a series of verses. In summary, then I'm going to read the verses, and then we'll carry on. So this summary, remember, Brahma is in the audience here. He's personally present. And he, little Prahlad, because where did he learn? In the womb of his mother. And how long was he in the womb of his mother? For the entire duration, the Hiranyakashipu was engaged in austerities. Poor mother. How many years was Hiranyakashipu off in the forest doing austerities? Long time. Thousands of years. And she, Kayadu, was protected by Narada. She requested Narada for the benediction that this child in my womb not be born until my husband returns from the forest. So he agreed, consented, and he gave her instruction. It doesn't say, how long was the class each day, but instruction for a long period of. So he was thoroughly trained and purified and elevated by the association of Narada Muni for quite some time. So he's now going. So in those, starting at verse 34, etc., he is describing how Lord Brahma saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, and describes what he did. And how Brahma appeared, and his self-searching, and it's this and that and the other thing. And then the personality of God had appeared before him and instructed him. And then Lord Nrsingadev, Prahlad starts to describe how Lord Nrsingadev is like the source of other avatars, although He's not the source of other avatars, and he knows who's the source of all the avatars. But he speaks of Hayagriva, for example. Hayagriva, who killed Madhu and Kaitaba, two demons, very, very, very early in creation. And then after that, he gave the Vedas to Lord Brahma. And Prahlada's understanding, Lord Nrsingadeva is very merciful to those who are his devotees. And he gives examples. And then he's going to begin this set of verses where he's speaking about his Prahlad's disqualification. He's circling back to the very beginning section of this whole canto is a description of Yudhisthira is having a discussion with Narada Muni. That's what the whole canto is. He's asking Narada Muni many questions. And one of the questions, the first big section, 4 chapters, is the personality of Godhead partial or impartial? Because it looked like he's partial. Yay, devotees, and boo, demons, look like. But then there's this lengthy philosophical and very practical description of his impartiality. He is simply reciprocating with the regard living entities have towards him. And it's philosophically important and it's practically important. As far as the teaching of bhakti, because the teaching of bhakti is all about the love and devotion with which we do what we do. Patram, pushpam, palam, etc. Even the simplest activity done with love and devotion. And it's something else that's very elevated and erudite and with high learning and so forth and so on, with big austerities. That's not the criterion that the personality of Godhead wants. It's the love and devotion. So that's the first section, and now he's coming back to that in this section. Brahma, and then comparing himself. Remember, third time, Brahma is the one that's asked him to go forward. So he's doing that because he thinks he's a special person. He's going forward on the instruction of his superior. Lord Brahma is his superior in age and in, the head of a sampradaya in wisdom. And so he Prahlad, has this simple conception about himself. I'm going to go back, just read the verses, starting with 34, because that was the previous section. And then we're going to begin. From that great lotus flower, Brahma was generated, but Brahma certainly could see nothing but the lotus. That was his seat. Because there was darkness in all directions. There was no sun, no moon, no electricity, no flashlight, darkness. Therefore, thinking you to be outside, Lord Brahma dove into the water and attempted to find the source of the lotus for 100 years. And this is 100 Brahma's years, not 100 of our years. It's a long time. He could find no trace of you. However, when a seed fructifies, the original seed cannot be seen. That's the verse. So where the lotus came from, he couldn't find the source because the seed has developed into a lotus, and he can't find where he came from. 35. Lord Brahma who is celebrated as Atmayoni, having been born without mother, was struck with wonder. Thus, though searching he couldn't find, thus he took shelter of the lotus flower. Up on top again. And when he had been purified after undergoing severe austerities for many hundreds of years, he could see that cause of all causes, the Supreme Personality Godhead, was spread throughout his own body and senses, just as aroma, although very subtle, is perceived in the earth. Philosophical little boy. Lord Brahma could then see you possessing thousands of faces, feet, hands, heads, thighs, noses, ears, and eyes. Sahasra Sirsha Purusha, right? Rig Veda. You were very nicely dressed, being decorated. Now he's speaking to Lord Nrsingadev, but he's speaking of Mahavishnu. He's speaking to Lord Nrsingadev, but he's speaking of Mahavishnu. So it's a one-to-one correlation. You, Mahavishnu. Seeing you in the form of Lord Vishnu, your symptoms and form being transcendental, your legs extending from the lower planets, Lord Brahma achieved transcendental bliss. So now Prahlada is moving into a description of the universal form, because Brahma has a service. After self-realization, he's supposed to build the universe. And there's the ingredients. And he has the blueprint, the universal form. He meditates on the universal form to know how to build the universe. My dear Lord, this is text 37. When you appeared as Hayagriva, so now he's moving from Mahavishnu and the Virat Rupa to Hayagriva. Because Vishnu, in one sense, is the source of all avatars. And Nrsingadev is one of the avatars, so he's equating them in one sense. They're different, but he's equating them. My dear Lord, when you appeared as Hayagriva with the head of a horse, you killed two demons known as Madhu and Kaitaba, who were full of the modes of passion and ignorance. Then you delivered the Vedic knowledge to Lord Brahma. For this reason, so Brahma needs knowledge in order to build the universe, and he gets knowledge from Hayagriva. For this reason, all the great saints accept your forms, plural, as transcendental, untinged by the material qualities. And then text 38. In this way, my Lord, you appear in various incarnations as human being, an animal, a great saint, a demigod, a fish, or a tortoise, thus maintaining the entire creation in different planetary systems and killing the demoniac principles according to age. O my Lord, you protect the principles of religion in the age of Kali. It's right in Prahlada's prayers. Text 38. In the age of Kali, however, you do not assert yourself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore you are known as Tri-Yuga, or Lord who appears in 3 yugas. Now, it's silent about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but he doesn't appear as the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he's the Chana avatar, or hidden avatar. Just yesterday, probably here also, but where I was in the Alachua, we were honoring Sita's appearance day. You did also? But is it Vedic calendar was yesterday Sita's appearance day here in Phoenix? You don't know? You know. Yes, yes. So you probably know, but if you don't know, now you'll know. There are multiple versions besides Valmiki Ramayana. There are multiple versions of Sita's appearance. And they're similar because they're different days of Brahma, and therefore they're different appearances of Sita and Ram. So there's slight variations. So don't get perplexed because different days of Brahma, no problem. There's the mood and the theme, and then there's details that are different. As Prabhupada said, variety is the mother of enjoyment. So he's a very good enjoyer, the best of enjoyers. So there's some variety. So there's mention in Valmiki Ramayana about Vedavati, but there in the other versions of Ramayana there's some mention, sometimes not mention of Vedavati. But in one of the versions, in Brahma Vaivarta Purana, there's a version that when Ravana comes to kidnap Sita, she initially, similar to Valmiki Ramayana, she's hospitable. He's dressed as a Brahmana in disguise. He's a cheater. He's not a Brahmana. He's a monster. But so he accepts her hospitality and the water and the fresh, sweet fruits and kind words and all of that. And then he starts, his eyebrows start to move. And then it's not just his eyebrows start to move, but he starts to, come on Sita. And so Sita understands immediately who this person is. And according to the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, she prays at once to Agni. Agni comes in the form of a Brahmana, and he introduces himself to Ravana as Agni, and because the description goes like this, and this is the Bhavishottara Purana. This is a version that Madhvacharya also likes. I'm going into this because the word Maya Sita is sometimes used to describe what happened. A Maya Sita, like in the Kurma Purana, a Maya Sita was taken by Ravana. And in this particular version, it's Chaya Sita, a reflection. So Agni Dev says, this Ravana, this isn't the real Sita. I know you were told that you should have her as your wife, but this isn't the real Sita. I know where the real Sita is. This is an imitation Sita. She looks just like Sita, but she's not Sita. So you wait here, and I'll arrange for the real Sita to be brought. And the commentary says, because Ravana, despised the demigods, the devas, but he had some confidence in Agni, because Agni is the person behind the austerities that he underwent, and Lord Brahma, who gave him the benedictions he got. So he trusted. So, the real Sita he took, and he brought back a Maya Sita, or Chaya Devi. And that was Vedavati. in this other version. It's different than Valmiki Ramayana. Because you know Valmiki Ramayana. Most of us know Valmiki Ramayana. It's different. So it was Maya Sita that Ravana kidnapped. Now, there's Kurma Purana describes it a little differently, and so forth and so on. But the imitation personality is known. So here, this is the similar. The Chana avatar. What happened? Help. Please check your network. Restart and try subtitles. I don't know where that came from. No, it went away. That's nice. Back to text number 38, because we're going to start with 39. So the Mahaprabhu, or Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, is Chana avatar, because he doesn't reveal himself as the personality of Godhead. Yet Scripture indicates him indirectly. And that one of those indirect presentations is he's Triyuga, the Supreme Lord, who appears in 3 yugas, but not as the personality of Godhead in Kali Yuga. So that's the end of the previous section. Ta-da! And that's just to get you up to speed so we can begin 39, 40, and 41. Now, my if all goes well, for the stay that the remaining time that I'm here with you in Phoenix, will complete Prahlad's prayers. Then we'll have Nrsimha Chaturdasi. That's if all goes well. That's the plan. So in 39 and 40, there's some teachings, there are obstacles to pure bhakti, polluted mind and unbridled senses. Brak's bhakti, that bhakti is the way to know Krishna. Here's text 39 translation. My dear Lord of Vaikuntha planets, where there is no anxiety, my mind is extremely sinful and lusty. You little boy. Being sometimes so-called happy and sometimes so-called distressed, my mind is full of lamentation and fear. Now he already went through his humility. He's not afraid. He already explained it at the very, very beginning of his prayers. So what's he afraid of? We'll hear what he's afraid of. And it always seeks more and more money. Thus it has become most polluted and is never satisfied in topics concerning you. I am therefore most fallen and poor in such a status of life. How shall I be able to discuss your activities? Now this is chapter 9, and as the chapter unfolds, Lord Nrsimhadev is going to ask him, "You please me very much by your wonderful prayers. Please take a benediction." And Prahlad is going to say, "No, thank you. Thanks, but no thanks. I saw my father say, please don't tempt me with material opulence. My father, he was on top of everything, and in a flash it was taken away from him. So please don't give me to this temporary thing. Please don't. Please give me pure devotion and association with Narada Muni and your pure devotees, please." And then Lord Nrsimhadev turns around and says, "I want you to take your father's kingdom." So that's it. He doesn't give him a choice. You become the king of the demons. Thank you. And enjoy the opulence of the kingdom, but you'll be protected by exactly what he's saying here. He's not going to be able to do. You'll be protected by bhakti. So you continue to sing my glories and praise my activities. And in this way, the allure of the opulences won't distract you, and you'll remain protected. Almost like anticipating that this is going to happen. He is saying, how is it with my lusty, agitated, I want more money mentality? How am I going to be protected? How will I be able to discuss your activities? Prabhupada writes in the purport, to understand the Lord and his activities, one must free his mind from all contamination of the material world. And this one can achieve by simply chanting the holy Lord's holy name. Thus one becomes free from all material bondage. How come we're not experiencing that? That's the natural question. I'm anticipating the natural question. Because it's a very, very similar thing comes in chapter 6 of Canto 7, where he's giving teachings to his classmates. And in the very early parts of his teachings to his classmates, he's advocating devotional service. And it says, even a slight amount of devotional service can bring one to the stage of complete perfection. So someone asked the question, really? I've been practicing for so many years. Very sincere, and I haven't achieved complete perfection. So why does it take so long? Similar here. One becomes free from all material bondage. There's several answers. One of them is there's potency, non-different than the Supreme Lord potency in the holy name of the Lord. There's potency in the process of chanting and hearing and glorifying his activities. Just like what we're doing by reading Srimad Bhagavatam. There's potency, same transcendental potency in the message of Srimad Bhagavatam as the potency of the personality of Godhead, not different. So how come we're not experiencing all that? Because the coverings are very thick, and our bhakti power is weak. It's insufficient. The effort is insufficient. The mercy's not unavailable, but our eagerness for that mercy is insufficient. So what to do? Then comes the sadhana, but not just time, but sincerity of sadhana. Proper attentiveness with the right purpose behind that attentiveness. And thus the mind can become freed from material contamination. Kirtaniya Sadahari. The holy name of the Lord should be chanted 24 hours daily. How can you do that? There are devotees that do that. Do you know devotees that do that? I know devotees that do that. And certainly Haridas Thakur and other super rare exalted devotees, but even modern contemporary devotees, it's one of their practices on special days. Just like, here's a question for you all. When the demigods, when Hiranyakashipu was off in the forest engaging in austerities, the demons were not protected by him. So the demigods thought, now's our chance. Hiranyakashipu had defeated Indra. Indrajit, his son, defeated Indra. And he took over the heavenly palace of Indra. He got booted. And all of his opulence. So when he was off engaging in austerities to get immortality, the devas, someone sent them a text message, little spy activity. And so in force, they came to regain Indra's kingdom. And when they went to regain Indra's kingdom, there was his pregnant wife. So when they saw she was pregnant, they arrested her. And the plan was to wait till the child was born and kill the child. And Narada came and said, no, what are you doing? The child in her womb is a great personality. So entrust her to me. And so that's what happened. So question, who was Prahlad before he was Prahlad? Is that a good question? Well, there's different days of Brahma. So there's different Prahlads. But there's one description that's found in Hari Bhakti Vilas. Any of you need an explanation of what is Hari Bhakti Vilas? Hari Bhakti Vilas. Hari Bhakti Vilas was composed by Gopal Bhatta Goswami and given in a manuscript form to Sanatana Goswami, who then published it. So we commonly know it was Sanatana Goswami's, I call it a how-to manual. What does a Vaishnav do? And there's sections and sections and sections and sections and sections, like how to observe Ekadasi, how to observe Janmashtami, how to conduct marriages, how to conduct initiations, how to worship the deity. It's how-to manual. And in one section, it's describing vratas that are beneficial for a devotee. And one of those vratas, vows, beneficial for a devotee is Nrsinga Chaturdasi Vrata. Guess what? It's coming up very soon. And to explain its greatness, there's a verse cited that says this Nrsinga Chaturdasi Vrata is eternal. And it has great power. And to indicate the greatness of power, there's a lengthy description quoting, I'm not remembering which Purana at the moment, narration where after Hiranyakashipu is killed, Prahlad asks Lord Nrsingadev, how did I become your devotee? Good question. And Lord Nrsingadev says, in your previous life, you were a Brahmana, but he doesn't say like Ajamila, but like Ajamila, you had become very fallen. You didn't read any scripture. You didn't observe any Brahminical principles. And not only that, you became a fallen associate of a prostitute. And your business was maintaining yourself by unlawful means, similar to what Ajamila did. You became a very, very fallen person. Fallen Brahmana. But one day, on Nrsinga Chaturdasi day, unknown to you, you got in a quarrel with this prostitute, and as a result of the quarrel, you were very upset, she was very upset, you fasted all night long, and now you're Prahlad. You took birth in your next life in this form, and you got the association of Narada, became my devotee. And after this life, you're going to go back to Godhead. And the lady, the prostitute, she became an apsara, and at the end of her life, she's going back to Godhead. Just see how powerful is this Nrsinga Chaturdasi Vrata. Reminder is coming. So then the next question. Well, what if we can't do the all-night Vrata? What are we supposed to do? The answer is anything with devotion. If it's unknowingly, unintentionally, they observe Nrsinga, what to speak of knowingly. So do something. Chant some extra rounds, or sing some songs to Lord Nrsingadev, or cook some offerings and offer to Lord Nrsingadev, or string some garlands, or do something in devotion. Patram pushpam palam toyam, whatever you have the capacity to do, because it's a very special day. So I know somebody that on very special days, they make it a point. They're not Badahari, as this nice image is showing. They're not a super kirtanier, but they like kirtan, and they like japa. And so they have a plan on special days, and they're 24 hours, and they chant lots of rounds. And some people like being with this other devotee, so they chant with them, and they do chant extra rounds, just being with this very dedicated devotee. And it's purifying. Text 40, my dear Lord, oh, infallible one, my position, Prahlada to Lord Nrsingadev, my position is like that of a person who has many wives, all trying to attract him in their own way. For example, the tongue is attracted to palatable dishes, the genitals to sex with an attractive woman. He's a little boy. The sense of touch to contact with soft things. The belly, although filled, still wants to eat more. And the ear, not attempting to hear about you, is generally attracted to cinema songs. Now, there's no cinema songs during his time, but that's Prabhupada's translation. Mundane songs, so cinema songs. The sense of smell is attracted to yet another side. The restless eyes are attracted to the scenes of sense gratification, and the active senses are attracted elsewhere. In this way, I'm certainly embarrassed. So here's the Sanskrit, and here's the BTG illustration. There's the perplexed fellow on the T-shirt, or in the front of his shirt, and there's, the senses being pulled this way, that way, the other way. Poor fellow. Prabhupada's purport. The human form of life is meant for God realization, but this process, which begins with Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, hearing chanting of the holy name of the Lord, is disturbed as long as our senses are materially attracted. Therefore, devotional service means purifying the senses. So, a classic BBT painting, this young fellow offering a flower to his deity of Radha Krishna, with the cyclic succession pictures in the front, etc. And a little simple setting, not elaborate and fabulous, and not ornate, but it's just the simple activity of giving the senses a higher activity. That which is pleasing to Krishna, you do that. That which is fragrant, you offer something fragrant to Krishna, and so forth. And it's simple. Prabhupada told the story. In Vrindavan, he experienced there was an old lady, not educated, simple lady, and every day she went to the Jamuna River with a pot, gathered the pot full of Jamuna water, and brought, without any fanfare or anything, just brought this pot of Jamuna water to the deity every day for the duration of her life. And Prabhupada's statement was that made her eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. It's not like a storybook. It's just a very simple act of devotion without expectation, just for the service of the deity. That's bhakti. And that replaces the rubbish. Final verse for this evening. He, Prahlad, has lots of humility, and he's not going to ask for anything for himself, but he's going to ask for everyone, deliverance of all. Here's the phrase at the bottom in blue, Parachara Pepini. So, Patita Bhava Vaitaranyam. We'll see the meanings of these words as we go forward. Prahlad addressed Lord Nrsingadev as Para Chara. He was situated on the other side of the Vaitarani river in the eternally free realm of Vaikuntha. So here's the verse again, translation. My dear Lord, you are always transiently situated on the other side of the river of death. But because of the reactions of our own activities, we are suffering on this side. Indeed, we have fallen into this river and are repeatedly suffering the pains of birth and death and eating horrible things. Now kindly look upon us, not only upon me, but also upon all others who are suffering. And by your causeless mercy and compassion, deliver us and maintain us. So his very broad, just like the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, wanting the deliverance of all living entities. Or what's the devotee who prayed to Lord Chaitanya that all living entities should be delivered from their sinful reactions? If you think they're too sinful, transfer their sinful reactions to me. What's his name? Vasudev Datta. So there's this Vaitarani river, and there's the living entities struggling, and some are falling off the boat. But there's a boat that's carrying them across the sea to the other shore. Because of the reactions of our own activities, we're suffering on this side. Indeed, we have fallen into this river and are repeatedly suffering the pains of birth and death and eating horrible things. So he is calling to the compassionate Lord, very similar to the same mood that he expressed to his classmates, but he's expressing here to kindly look upon us, not only upon me, but also all others who are suffering. The deliverer is the personality of Godhead. We can't deliver ourselves. We can't stop the misfortunes. We can make our best effort to make wise choices, but everything is ultimately dependent upon the personality of Godhead and his being merciful. And he'll be merciful. We just have to, he's not partial. If we want it, he's ready. So here's Prahlad coming before Lord Nrsingadev, offering these nice prayers. Now, somehow the screen is not showing properly, but there's Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu giving his mercy to Vasudeva, the leper. You know the story? Anyone here not know the story, would like to hear the story? Okay. When Lord Chaitanya wanted to travel through South India and deliver the land, he made a good excuse. No one could say no. The good excuse was he wanted to look for his brother. He had an elder brother And his elder brother had taken sannyas even before he took sannyas. So he wanted to look for his elder brother in South India. Although he's omniscient, he knew that he had already left this world. So the description goes, there's a whole wonderful description. He was walking along the road with his arms raised, singing Krishna's names. Not just the Hare Krishna mantra, but Krishna, 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 Hey. Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Raksham. Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava. And dancing and chanting and crying in ecstasy, and people hadn't seen anything like this. He was roaring, and so he was traveling in that mood. And he came to this small village, and he saw in this small village a very poor man who had leprosy, a brahmana, but he had leprosy. The description is his body was so rotten that there were worms in the sores of his leprosy, and when the worms would fall out, he'd pick them up and put them back. And when Lord Chaitanya saw this very compassionate and suffering brahmana, he went over, as the painting shows, and he embraced him. And by embracing him, his body became normal again, golden and very beautiful and all healed. A miracle cure. And then Vasudeva Brahmana offered his prayers, speaking, similar to Prahlada's prayers. You're the most merciful, you're the kind to the most fallen, and so forth and so on. And so that what Prahlada's teachings are very much the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And here's what he said: who am I, a sinful, poor friend of a brahmana? And who is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, full of six opulences? Nonetheless, he has embraced me with his two arms. Humility, profound humility, and profound compassion. Here's from Prabhupada's purport on this verse. Fools who cannot perceive repeated birth and death and the other miseries of materialistic life cannot be sure of what will happen to them in their next birth. Indeed, these foolish, materially contaminated rascals have manufactured an irresponsible way of life that does not consider the next life. They do not know that according to one's own activities, one receives a body selected from 8,400,000 species. These rascals, this is not a lecture, this is his purport. Prabhupada's got the boxing gloves off and he's hitting barefisted. Nonetheless, those who are not Krishna conscious must engage in sinful activities, and therefore they are mudhas, fools and rascals. They are such fools that they do not know what will happen to them in their next life. Although they see varieties of living creatures eating abominable things, pigs eating stool, crocodiles eating all kinds of flesh, and so on, they do not realize that they themselves, because of their practice of eating all kinds of nonsense in this life, will be destined to eat the most abominable things in their next life. A Vaishnava is always afraid of such abominable life. And to free himself from such horrible conditions, he engages himself in the devotional service of the Lord. The Lord is compassionate to them, and therefore he appears for their benefit. I mean, of all the persons in the whole of South India, he came across this leper in a terribly deteriorated condition of health and showed his mercy to him. And, who knows? This little sharing, I don't think he's passed through here yet, but there's a devotee, Parama Karuna Das, a disciple of Gopal Krishna Maharaj from India. And his thing is, every day he's at a different university. He sets up books on meditation and yoga. And he was at a place on the West Coast today. You sent me the photographs of the people he met. But, intense wrangling of grad student, Indian-born scientists who one was saying, "What's wrong with being a dog? Why are you speaking like this? What's wrong with being a dog?" And three others, he said he spent 3.5 hours discussing with them, why does God exist? And because they were of the opinion, this God thing, you don't need it. We have science. They were convinced that in atheism, and arguing and arguing and arguing. So he stood his ground, but I don't know if I would have taken my time. But it's the point is, it's pervasive. It's not that it's not around anymore, without going into it further. It's the age of Kali, and people that don't have contact with transcendental knowledge, they have to buy into something. And there's something that's abundantly available, is you don't need God. And it's perilous, very dangerous, and it's pervasive. So, we're outnumbered. And things aren't going up, things are going down. So the advice given in this whole section of Prahlada's teachings is be very cautious with this association. Select and engage in activities with sadhu, and beware of the other kind of association. Okay, enough of that. Now, Srila Prabhupada set such an example. Here he is in the Boston Harbor. By the way, they're having something like the 50th anniversary of Prabhupada's arrival, 60th anniversary of Prabhupada's arriving in the Boston Harbor, September of this year. This is from his prayers he wrote in Boston Harbor. Most of the population here is covered by nature's modes of ignorance and passion, and I do not know how they'll be able to understand the transcendental message of Vasudeva. You are the Lord of the whole creation. So if you like, you can make my power to speak suitable so that they can understand. By your causeless mercy only, my words may become transcendentally pure, and I am sure that when such transcendental messages penetrates their hearts, certainly they will feel gladdened and thus become liberated from all unhappy conditions of life. And a life of dedication to this very same principle. Celebrated prayers written in hand on when he arrived at the Boston Harbor, with all of that endeavor with 2 strokes crossing the boat. He's wondering, what am I supposed to do here? This is a dark place. And yet here's a painting, a photograph, and there he is playing the drum up on the upper right. That's Mukunda. So this is in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. Hippies dressed and dancing and doing what hippies do. And there's Prabhupada right in the middle, playing cartels, and he, with such faith in the holy name that he was protected, and others were transformed. With full dependence upon Krishna for that capacity to speak in such a way. And that's the mood of Prahlada. In the midst of his classmates and to his teachers, Sandandamarka, and anybody and everybody. His father, who wanted to kill him for speaking the way that he was speaking. Strong message. We'll hear some more as we go forward from the rest of his prayers in this chapter. Powerful prayers. Any discussion? It's 8:25. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for your wonderful, purifying presentation about Prahlad Maharaj. My quick question is, Maharaj, based on, as you said, there are a lot of places that talk about the different types of pastime in a different way. Sometime regarding Maharaj Prahlad, upon protecting Maharaj Kayadu from the hand of Indra and other devatas, my question is, was Prahlad Maharaj left at the kingdom of Hiranyakashipu, or sometime it is explained that he was taken to higher planetary system, because Kayadu was left out alone without...
Prior to when? He was taken to a higher planetary system.
Did Kayadu receive a protection from Narad Muni around his ashram area?
In his ashram, but it doesn't say where his ashram is. His ashram is a transcendental place. It can be wherever, but it's a transcendental place.
So Prahlad was not left at the kingdom, was he? Was Prahlad Maharaj along with Kayadu left at the palace of Hiranyakashipu, or?
It doesn't say. I mean, I'm unaware of any description, certainly not in the Bhagavatam. I'm not aware of any description that says they left this planet and went to some other planet. They went to his ashram, wherever that is. But, Narada he's an interplanetary traveler. But where his ashram was, my assumption has always been, somewhere on Earth, but not necessarily now that you're bringing it up. But whether it's on Earth or in heaven or in Vaikuntha, it's a transcendental place wherever he is.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Haribol.
Okrina Simha was delayed by about 6 months because the South Indian sculpturist, he could not find the right stone. So devotees in Mayapur were very disappointed, very angry. But the Kalakar or the sculptor said, sorry, this stone which you have got for me is not auspicious. I have to find the right stone.
Okay.
And it took him about 6 more months.
Okay.
Haribol.
That's a nice story. That's the additional part. Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Qualified sculptor. Any other comments or questions? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for the class. My question was, Prahlad, even when pushed to such extremes of, being thrown in a pit of snakes or being trampled by elephants, he still remembered the Lord. But us, even if we're not pushed to such an extreme, even a simple thing such as, being in a distracting circumstance can make us forget Krishna.
Yeah.
So what can we do to...
We're pretty weak, huh?
that?
Well, a nice answer to that question is found in Rishabh Dev's teachings to his sons. that verse number 2, 5:5:2, Vatsevam Dwaram Ahur Vimuktis. It's another way of saying Sadhu Sangha. Mahatsevam Dwaram Ahur Vimuktis. So that the association, which means association with sadhu, means to serve sadhu, hear from sadhu, not just hang out with, be in the physical proximity of, but hear and serve. And by the principle of Sangha, we develop qualities like those persons who we intimately associate with. And this is, our Vaishnava teachings are filled with such ideas. So, what we're doing right now, for example. And or we know what Prabhupada did. And the venue doesn't matter. It's the consciousness, and because of the consciousness. And it's philosophically and practically true. He transformed the lives of many, 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 many persons who were, whatever their birth was, their behavior was not nice. And he didn't scold them, he transformed them. And so it's possible from any position. So the Sadhu Sangha principle. And with sadhus, you do bhajana kriya. You do with sadhus what sadhus do. And the ISKCON is meant for providing a venue, a place where sadhu sangha is possible. And so sadhu sangha doesn't just mean an itinerant sannyasi. Sadhu sangha means one who's dedicated their life to service to Krishna, and in a way that's favorable. Vaishnava Seva, serving the devotees of the Lord. Anything else?
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So I was just thinking about the one line that Prabhupada had in his purport where he said, Vaishnava is afraid of his next life, so he engages in devotional service.
Okay.
And I mean, typically we also hear that once you even try doing devotional service, then your next life is guaranteed in the sense that you won't have to suffer, you'll continue your devotional service. So how do we understand Prabhupada's statement here?
I'm not sure what you're asking. Can you do it again?
Sure. So Prabhupada in the line is mentioning that Vaishnava is afraid of his next birth.
Well, okay. It's not exactly afraid of their next birth. If you supposing somebody does some slight devotional service, because that's the premise. Swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahat. Even a slight amount of alpa. Then it guarantees one, freedom from the greatest danger. What's the greatest danger? Seeing the Amadutas. That's Prabhupada's explanation. Going to that dark place and, going downwards from the human form of life. So at least the human form of life. But, what's that human form of life going to be? And therefore, the concern is not just what's my next form of life going to be, but how do I make the connection with Krishna so strong that it doesn't break? Sometimes it breaks. There, we, without going into the history, in the past 2 weeks of preparing ourselves for the Shringa Chaturdasi, there have been discussions of fall downs of persons. Sometimes very elevated persons became fallen persons, without the histories and examples. But it happens. It has happened. So they may take a human form of life, but they're responsible for the misdeeds that go on after that initial devotional service. However alpam, however modest it may have been, or however substantial it may have been. So it's not just afraid of, but it's wanting to achieve the real fruit of devotional service. And being complacent, that's a concern. Let me not become complacent and just take for granted. Business finished. I've got a human form of life for my next life. Haribol. Okay, I'm going to end. Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanandi. Prahlada Maharaj ki. I came from Alachua, and they have deities in Alachua, Radha Shamasundar deities, and they supplied me with some Mahaprasadam, Radha Shamasundar Mahaprasadam. So I'm going to walk around and pass out some Mahaprasadam. Okay.